The first 30 days of no contact, anxious versus avoidant brain chemistry explained. The first 30 days of no contact are not silence. They are a chemical war inside two completely different nervous systems. One is driven by emotional hunger and panic, while the other is driven by emotional shutdown and relief. In the anxious brain, no contact feels like withdrawal from a powerful emotional drug. Dopamine pathways that were once activated by messages, attention, and uncertainty suddenly collapse. The anxious person's brain starts scanning for patterns that no longer exist. Every notification sound becomes a trigger for hope and disappointment at the same time. Cortisol levels rise sharply as the attachment system interprets silence as danger. The body literally behaves as if it is being abandoned in real time. This is why the anxious mind cannot just move on in the first few days. It is not weakness, it is neurochemical dependency breaking down. The prefrontal cortex struggles to maintain logic when emotional alarm systems are active. So even rational understanding gets overridden by emotional urgency. In contrast, the avoidant brain reacts to no contact with initial relief. The nervous system experiences a drop in perceived emotional demand and pressure. Dopamine regulation in avoidance is tied to autonomy and control, so distance initially feels like freedom rather than loss. The avoidant brain suppresses attachment signals through emotional deactivation. This creates a false sense of being completely unaffected. But underneath that suppression, the attachment system does not disappear. It simply becomes delayed and less conscious in expression. During the first week, the anxious person enters hyperactivation mode. They replay conversations, reinterpret memories, and search for hidden meaning. Sleep patterns begin to break as intrusive thoughts increase at night. The brain keeps trying to solve a problem that has no current input. At the same time, the avoidant person increases distraction-based coping mechanisms. Work, social media, and new stimulation replace emotional processing. This is not healing for avoidance. It is avoidance reinforced by reward circuits. The brain learns that distance equals safety and emotional control. By day 10, the anxious nervous system starts to experience attachment panic peaks. This is where the urge to text or reconnect becomes almost unbearable. The dopamine system begins craving even negative contact over no contact, because any signal is better than emotional uncertainty. The avoidant brain at this stage often feels emotionally neutral on the surface, but the limbic system is slowly beginning delayed processing in the background. This delay is why avoidants often appear fine and then suddenly shift later. Their emotional system is not gone, it is just not synchronized with time. By the second week, the anxious person enters protest behavior internally. They may check social media repeatedly for signs of presence or absence. Each check gives a microdopamine spike followed by a stronger crash. This creates a reinforcement loop similar to intermittent reward addiction. The brain begins associating the person with obsession rather than connection. This is where emotional exhaustion starts replacing hope. Meanwhile, the avoidant brain begins subtle emotional recalibration. The absence of external pressure allows suppressed feelings to surface slowly. However, these feelings are often misinterpreted as discomfort rather than attachment. So the avoidant mind tries to regain control by increasing emotional distance internally. By day 15, the anxious system starts to experience identity disruption. The brain struggles to define self without the relationship reference point. Oxytocin withdrawal creates a sense of emotional emptiness and instability. The body feels unsafe even in safe environments. This is why anxious individuals often romanticize the past during no contact. The brain selectively highlights positive emotional memories to reduce pain. The avoidant system at this stage may experience unexpected curiosity, not about reconnection, but about whether they are still emotionally free. This curiosity is subtle and often dismissed immediately by rational thinking, but it signals that attachment pathways are beginning to reactivate. By the third week, the anxious brain reaches emotional fatigue. The constant cortisol and dopamine cycling drains psychological energy. Thought patterns begin shifting from hope to grief and acceptance phases. This is where emotional healing can actually begin if no contact continues. The avoidant brain now starts to experience delayed emotional echo. Memories of closeness resurface without the immediate escape route of avoidance. However, the avoidant defense system quickly minimizes these signals again, so emotions appear in waves rather than continuous experience. By day 20, the anxious nervous system starts rebuilding baseline stability. Dopamine receptors begin slowly recalibrating to normal stimulation levels. The urge to check or reach out still exists, but loses intensity. The brain is learning that survival is possible without constant input. The avoidance system begins noticing absence more consciously now. Silence is no longer neutral, it starts carrying emotional weight. This is often where avoidants feel confusion rather than pain, because their emotional awareness is delayed, not absent. By the final week, both nervous systems begin stabilization in different ways. The anxious brain moves toward detachment through exhaustion and adaptation. The avoidant brain moves toward awareness through delayed emotional processing. Both paths are different routes to the same psychological truth. The truth is that attachment cannot be turned off instantly in either system. It can only be suppressed, delayed, or restructured over time. By day 30, the anxious person often feels reduced emotional urgency, not because love disappeared, but because neurochemistry has reset partially. The avoidant person may suddenly experience unexpected emotional reflection, not always about reconnection, but about meaning and loss. This is why no contact is not just separation, it is nervous system recalibration. It forces both attachment styles to confront their own internal wiring. The anxious brain learns that craving does not equal survival necessity. The avoidant brain learns that distance does not erase emotional imprinting. In the end, both systems are trying to achieve balance, not control. One learns to tolerate absence, and the other learns to tolerate presence. And what feels like silence between two people is actually loud neurochemical transformation. Because no contact does not end attachment, it rewires it from the inside.